Hello, Rob.
Hello, Nathan.
We're going to do a show.
Yay!
Should we have Dalek's music and then we'll get on with it?
It is the intro music.
Yeah, here we go.
Wake up in the morning, a playlist like what you've done. We are the best podcast, yeah, you don't need another one. You like games and banter, you like guns and RPG. So how come you feel so lonely when they talk Destiny? So for your regard, we'll talk about dice and cards. We'll talk about white dragons with blue eyes. We'll waffle on about Elfenland and Dominion. Looks like the magic's paper-based tonight. 'Cause we all feel like Bouncy when he talks about board games. He knows how to play Catan and Carcassonne too, by the way. And Devil Bunny, Dr. Lucky, all the other cheap-ass games. So we all feel like Bouncy, yes, and here's Bouncy today. We all feel like Bouncy, Bouncy, especially when we got nothing better to do. We all feel like Bouncy, Bouncy. He always cheers you up when you're not in the mood. We all feel like Bouncy, Bouncy. Talking about Ticket to Ride and Candyland for you.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm liking his themes that are themed themes.
Yeah.
It's certainly working well, this whole new plan that we're coming
I
up
know.
with. It's almost like we're a professional outfit.
Almost.
Like a police uniform
No.
or a maid's costume.
Police uniform.
Well, that's a professional outfit.
Because we're covered in donut sugar.
No, it's an outfit
Yeah.
that is worn by a professional.
Yeah.
So hello.
Hi.
It's Thursday this week.
It is.
Because you had a crappy day on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I've had a crappy day today.
Yeah.
But we can't put it off any longer, otherwise this won't be out tomorrow night.
It's true.
So this week, boys and girls at home, and animals, if you have dogs listening, because some dogs do listen.
Some of them just like the noise on in the background, so they don't think they're home alone.
And it's definitely a noise. This episode, I've called Board, Board, Board. How do you like it? How do you like it?
Dun, dun, dun.
But it's bored, as in board game.
Yeah.
Bored, as in I'm fed up with this. And bored, as in Sid James.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite... It works better. People at home will have seen
better
it.
visually.
Yeah, they'll have seen that. I don't know if I'll be able to get the how do you like it, like, suffix.
Yeah.
But because we've said it on the show, people know that was our intention. But I think it might crop it down.
Okay.
I might put it in the item description.
Maybe.
That'd be good. So this week, as you may have guessed, we're talking about board games, tabletop games, card games, maybe even some playground games. We don't know. We don't know what our conversation will do.
Wow.
We can set out of a plan for quite a lot of things.
It does get awkward when you try and play Stuck in the Mud in your living room and your housemate comes home.
On your own.
Yeah,
On
you're right.
With no clothes on.
You've gone to get a pork pie and I'm just stood there on my own in the living room.
So this week we'll be talking about the board games that we played as kids. And most that'll be kind of a nice little retro thing because people want a bit more retro stuff. We talk about having a party, playing games socially.
Yep.
And so I'll be talking about some of the game nights in my shop. We've got Dalek who's going to be talking about some game related apps.
Yep.
And then we'll probably just round it all up with a general
neat
discussion.
little package.
Yeah.
Oh.
So let's crack on with the show.
Sure. Yes.
I'm going to drop a little sting in there, like proper professional.
Yeah. That was a nice little sting there. Proper professional.
It was proper professional. I might forget to put the sting in. This will actually...
I'm going to sound like a fool.
This will be like an epitaph for our podcast where it's like, do you remember that time that they thought they were getting really good? Because they had that sectional idea. And then when they went to do their section, they forgot to put the music in. But talked about how much it was. Yeah, well, it is. I always imagine... I said to my missus the other day, we walked past the funeral directors. So you see what I mean when I say sometimes they'll just wander off. And in the window,
we've gathered by now, we sometimes go off at a tangent. In
the window of the cooperative funeral directors, they had 4 tiny gravestones, about 12 inches high.
Yes, I think I know which ones you mean.
Just to show you what sort of stone you can have.
Yeah.
And I thought, I want one of those. Because that's amazing. Like, if you imagine a massive great graveyard, if everybody had those tiny little headstones, It'd be awesome. I mean, people probably nick them.
I'd want to have it be buried somewhere really inconvenient with that tiny headstone. So when people walk around the corner outside Tesco's, they just trip over every time.
I'd like mine.
It's like a lasting impact
just
on the world.
outside, somebody I don't like's front door, so they can't quite open their door. It's just enough so they can fit out, but just enough so it's inconvenient.
so they can kind of cry out for help, but kind of help.
No, I don't want it so that they're actually trapped and die. I mean,
properly or not at all.
Well, I'm dead. I'm not going to have any say in this. This is just going to be a funeral director taking my last wishes on board.
Oh, there we go.
And taking my millions that we've made from this eventually office podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, just enough so they can squeeze out. But if they put any weight on, they will be in trouble.
Yeah.
And they definitely wouldn't be able to carry all their Tesco shopping in at once. They'd have to do lots of trips, which would be very inconvenient. So that's what I'd quite like.
Oh.
But I also imagined, if I had a full-size one, I was quite like the idea of not having it engraved.
Right.
Or, it would be engraved.
Yeah.
Because they don't really hammer them anymore, chisel it in, do they? They tend to print like a gold leaf engraving thing. I'd quite like one of those, when you go to a leisure centre, they have those red LED strips that words scroll along.
Yep. You can get them to go in the back of your car now and everything.
Yeah, I want one of those set into a gravestone that just comes up with constantly set different messages. And all it'll be is my Twitter feed. Every tweet I ever wrote just constantly on a loop, because that will be my legacy.
So it's going to be 2/3 pork pies then.
It'll be a lot of pork pies, a lot of shouting at the Argos book, occasionally just moaning. But yeah, if you think about it, an epitaph on a gravestone is basically the last thing you want the world to know about you.
Yeah.
I'd quite like my Twitter feed to just constantly be on a loop. It would be awesome. It couldn't be it shouldn't be difficult. Not with the technology we've got these days. Put a little chip in there that just constantly plays it.
Yeah, maybe.
Or it could be like those things they have where advertisers buy a massive LED billboard and they say tweet your thing.
It rotates and all this sort of
and
stuff.
People tweet something like you are gay. And it comes on a massive great big billboard in Piccadilly. So they could do that where you could walk by and you could just send a tweet.
It's funny you should say that.
Use the hashtag Bouncy's dead.
The TSN, I think Toronto Sports Now in Canada, kind of came stuck with one of those tweet us your opinions on trade deadline day in the NHL, because they posted a tweet saying, I'll expand on the names because people don't know, Joffrey Lupul should stay with Toronto because he banged Dion Phaneuf's wife. It got on to one of the biggest broadcasters in Canada, and it's like, so of course that was instantly screen capped by a lot of people and posted around Twitter, and that got a bit messy because the poor guy was like, I'm joking, guys. And it's like, we're going to sue him. Whoa! So yeah, that all came heavily unravelled, hilariously quickly.
Well, I'll be dead, so it'll be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, they could just use a specific hashtag, and they could be looking for that hashtag. It'd be like Bouncy's dead, lol. And then every time anybody types that, it would then come up on my gravestone, just light up. So, board games.
Yes.
Rob. When we were kids, remember back to then?
When we were young, things seemed so perfect.
When we didn't have Twitter to distract us, we had to play things. We had to actually play with things. And not just VTech pre-made.
Email was post in Yorkshire.
Yeah. And yeah, I was going to come up with another one then, but I couldn't.
I've basically cornered the market, eh? You're not going to beat that.
You've beaten me at my own game.
It's like the top answer in Family Fortunes.
It's what it is. Everything else is just going to be a cross on the board, and Vernon Kay is going to look at me and go, I stole Les Dennis's job for you, and you're just totally not worth it. That's not his accent either, is it?
Not really.
I'm failing today. But yeah, you had to play proper games, and for some of us, that meant a shelf full of board games. Did you have a board game shelf or a cupboard or anything?
I think I had them kind of stacked in my cupboard where I kept my toys.
Even now, I mean, we'll talk about what board games I'm playing now, but that's a very inconvenient design flaw of board games. Because they stack nicely, they're usually flat, but you always want the one at the bottom.
Yeah, but you very quickly develop the technique for pushing the one above back as you slide the bottom one out.
But then what happens is, would you not start with the big board? So you'd have Monopoly, which is quite a long board.
So you'd have a pyramid.
And then you'd work up to a narrow one. But then to put one back, you've either got to invert the pyramid,
or give up on my OCD and just live with it.
Yeah, or you've got to then try and lift a whole pile up to put it back where it belongs.
See, at that age, I'd probably just leave it to one side, and my mum was just like, for fuck's sake, and then she'd do it.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think she'd say fuck, but...
Well, she might.
In her head,
it's nice not to think of your parents just wandering around swearing at you as a child, but I dare... Actually, no, the 80s. You were an 80s kid, weren't you?
Yeah.
I dare say... I don't think fuck was a prolific swear word, just in casual language like it is nowadays.
No. The Navy wasn't as prominent in the 80s, you see. That's what it is.
Well, it was.
When all those people joined the Navy off the back of that song.
Yeah.
It changed the world forever, linguistically.
The village people
have a lot to answer for.
Yeah, they certainly do. Because I went to the YMCA and all they had was a swimming pool and a rifle range, which was good, but they didn't mention the rifle range in that song at all.
No.
If they had mentioned that,
they also didn't mention that it was the same thing.
No.
If you went for a swim, you took your life into your hands. If you were the guy with the rifle, however, fun was there.
You were okay as long as you didn't wear the swimming cap with a target painted on it. If you were just like the one with like the civilian, you were fine. You had to. They'd lose points for shooting you, as opposed to being who we now call him Colander Head. Who would always wear that one, just got shot so many times.
That was the best scene in Wayne's World 2, where they were in Lenin's Communist Pie, and then the guy's just like, I really liked that YMCA scene in Wayne's World 2. That's probably my favourite scene from either of the films.
And which, if you ask some people, they think is from a Police Academy film. Because they forget, because they mix up the Blue Oyster.
Some people are wrong.
But yeah, so board games. I had lots of board games. My Uncle Terry ran a firm called TLE Skips.
Right.
His name was Terry Edwards, so I'm guessing his L was his middle name. Probably Leonard. I don't know. I'm just guessing. But he ran a skip company. And what I very quickly learned, and I'm going to stop doing that noise as much as I can this week.
Stop blowing kisses at me.
Last week, I watched a programme and they were talking about how annoying it is when teenage girls go, so, like that. I don't want to do it.
They can't even.
I've kind of absorbed it, so I keep doing accents, so I'll try and stop doing that.
Especially regressing to a teenage girl, then. You're going to start finishing all sentences with an upwards inflection.
I don't think I can regress into a teenage girl, because I never was a teenage girl. I don't want to get into a teenage girl either. Unless they're 19.
No, Taylor Swift's not a teenager anymore.
No, but... butter my arse. If you haven't seen that, people, do go to thelolocaust.co.uk, where you will find Taylor Swift images transposed with Alan Partridge quotes.
That was great. I also like the Rock lip syncing "Shake It Off" on Jimmy Fallon the other night.
It's getting to the point now where my adoration of current Taylor Swift, I don't like the country and western stuff. I like her now, and not in a sexy way. I just kind of like what she represents.
Okay.
But even then, I guess that's somewhat produced. Yeah. But either way, I can go with that. And
Do you know what else she represents is the change of attitude. She stood up to Spotify, and everybody's kind of like, fair play. When Metallica stood up to Napster, everyone hates Lars Ulrich, or more so because of that. How times change.
That's true. And somebody who can go from being a country and western singer and sometime actress, in inverted commas, to being lip-synced by an American wrestler. Yeah, it's very good. But yeah, I had lots of board games, and he basically would give them to me out of his skip.
Okay.
Because what I always assumed with a skip company is you put your rubbish in it and they take it to a dump.
Yeah.
No, that's not what happens. It goes to his house. Well, not his house. It's like put it through the back door.
It was quite a small skip company.
Well, he could have took it through the back door, but somebody died and had their gravestone put just inconveniently near the back door. He had a shed, and he'd put them down, and he'd go through the entire skip.
Yep.
And he'd go, right, well, there's some books there. They might be worth a little bit. And there's some clothes. We can take those there. And he would separate everything out. And I got loads of stuff. I got a 150-year-old stamp book out of there. It's not worth anything, I found out, which is depressing. The book itself is worth more than the stamps inside it, even though they're really old. It was somebody who'd collected them. And it was a brown paper case.
Yep.
And then underneath was this kind of royal purple kind of thing with gold leaf. Right, and it was like a proper Victorian stamp book. And the only reason we knew how old it was the year was like apostrophe 89.
Right.
And this was 1988.
Okay.
So it's clearly at least 100 years old at that point.
More sinister than that.
Yeah. Well,
your future self had
left future self had gone back in time stamp collecting and then came forward. And
do you know what is a really scary idea that I keep seeing advertised at the moment? Trevor McDonald with the Mafia. Now, this is either going to be an amazingly interesting programme or the scariest shit I've ever experienced. Can you just imagine him turning up with two great big skinhead guys going, and finally, and it's like, oh shit. But yeah, that's been keeping me up at night, apparently.
So he would give me quite a lot of board games out of this skip. So I'd get the usual. I had one which was, I think it was called Grand National or the Derby, But it
There
had
was a game called Totopoly, which was a horse racing game.
similar thing, probably. You had like a long track, and you'd turn a handle, which would vibrate.
Oh no, yeah, this is different.
So you'd had like a box, and then you'd pull out of it like a felt track, and you'd attach that together under your table, and you'd all pick a horse, and you'd put it on, and then you'd basically turn this handle, which was like the rumble pack in a controller, and it would shake the table, so these horses would vibrate along very, very slowly. Okay. But it was absolutely riveting. Because you're like, oh my god, the horses vibrate, go harder! And that's it. The faster you went, what would happen is they'd sometimes just slowly turn sideways.
What are you doing?
It was basically... It was supposed to be as exciting as a real horse race, but what it was actually is as exciting as a snail race. If you've ever watched those, where they're trying to lure out a bit of lettuce and stuff. Because it had the same concept. One of the horses would just slowly turn in a circle. The Ralph Wiggum of the horse world.
I don't fancy this anymore.
But there was no reason why this should be exciting. Because it's basically
cranking
10 minutes of
vibration.
Massively cranking the thing, just for a horse to wobble off the end of a table. But in the world of the 80s, that was bloody amazing. I think that was a game from the 40s that just kept going and going and going. I believe they still make it now. I'll look into it. I'm going to do a thing afterwards which complements this online, so I'll try and find pictures of all the games we're talking about. Nice. And where possible, YouTubes of their adverts. Because the next one I got is Ghost Castle, which we both played.
We both had that.
I have that still.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that as a kid.
It is as good now as it ever was. Which if you haven't played, frankly, you've missed out. They did a re-released version with a Scooby-Doo theme. Oh. As they did Ghost Castle, they did something else as well, which I can't remember what it's called, where they made it a little bit more random.
Right.
And then they did a Scooby-Doo version, which was pretty much exactly the same layout.
With Scooby-Doo.
But yeah, so basically, if you haven't seen this one, you played as a child who, for some unknown reason, is wandering around and then into a haunted mansion with the aim of climbing a tower to seal a crypt that stops the evil within the mansion. Yeah. Which is quite brave of these kids. Only they're constantly getting frightened. Yeah. And then you have to spin a little disc to get yourself unfrightened before you can move again. And you had a little plastic thing you'd put over your face to say...
Frightened.
Yeah. And it's good. And if you got a skull, what would you do, Rob?
I can't remember. You'd
drop a skull in the top.
Oh, of course.
And it would separate one of 4 directions, which would trigger a trap. So you'd either have the knight's axe, would drop off a suit of armour. You'd have one which was a wobbly seesaw bit of floor, which would, if it fell on there, it would knock you over. You had a mirror, that if you're on the one side of it, you could skip forward some spaces. But if you're on the wrong side of it, it would wallop you, because it had a skeleton on the wall. And then the other one, I think, was just going down the stairs. So if you were climbing the stairs, it would knock you back
just
to the bottom.
Knock you back down, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the one I most remember.
Because it was the most frustrating of them. If you played it properly as well, where you had to roll the exact number to get to the top, and you had every time you rolled a skull, you were like, "Oh God, no, not again!" But it was great, and I bought it for my children. I saw it at a charity shop in Whittlesea for £1.50 for the original Milton Bradley version.
Nice.
And I was like, "Oh, I wonder if it's all there. Has it got the little the glowing skull in it?" And it did. Yeah. Still glowed in the dark.
The glowing skull falling down the stairs.
Which a lot of people lost that skull and had to replace it with a ball bearing. Frankly, not quite the same thing.
Or the mouse trap.
Well, what was brilliant about the design is that skull wouldn't easily fit down the hole either. No. Sometimes you'd have to physically poke it a little bit because it would get stuck. Yep. That was always quite an interesting thing. Like they went, "I want a skull." What for? Well, we designed this board game and we're going to put it... I always imagine Milton Bradley being Italian. I don't know, probably a guy from Milton in Bradley, probably. But I want this guy to go into the hole and then he comes out and it goes to one of the 4 ways and it scares the children. How big's the hole? It doesn't matter how big the hole is. I want the skull. And then it was just slightly too big, which was great.
Which was a design flaw.
What else did you like when you were a kiddie playing board games?
Totopoly, I just mentioned, the horse racing one. Which is, I don't know if it's hard to explain or not. Basically, you roll the dice. This is how I probably very poorly played as a child. Right. I just roll the dice and move the horse around the...
Well, that's the other part of kids playing board games, is you kind of make your own rules. Or houses have their own rules. So if you go to a Monopoly, one person, all your cards pay into the middle, which you collect if you land on free parking. Yeah.
I didn't used to play that when I was a kid, But now I'm older, and whenever we play with friends, we can't play it that way now.
Because it's nicer to have money at the end of the game. It can turn the fortunes quite a lot.
That's
balances
kind
out.
of the point. Yeah,
because Monopoly, as we were discussing earlier, is the most mean-spirited game in the world.
it can be. Yeah,
And it can really cause arguments. So
yes, it can.
the free parking thing can help. Not necessarily avoid the arguments, but it can prolong it, prolong that time until the argument happens, because you can suddenly find yourself with 500 quid that you didn't have before. But it's not an official rule.
No,
that's the interest. It is just a space where nothing happens. Some people do. If you land on Go, you get 400. If you land on it, but again, not an official rule. And yet, the Star Wars Monopoly PC game, where you had digitised R2D2 and C3PO, if you landed, that was actually a rule set you could put in. And over the years, the Monopoly makers have kind of taken on board
these house rules.
kind of, and I forget the rule of it, but it's something like there's a proper word for that kind of, if it's made up by somebody, but it's now almost become the official set. You can play it if you like that. Same as if you land on a property after you've been around the board once and you don't want it, it has to go up for auction. Yeah. Well, most people never play it like that. No. They just go, I don't want it. Because you don't want it. You don't want to give it away to somebody else for less. Yeah. But that was the whole point. It was always it would go up for auction. That was the cutthroat world of Monopoly. So I like this idea. But yeah, so you're saying you rolled the dice and you just rode around on horses? Or? Pretty much. You basically had horse figures. Yep. We call them figures. And then 4 tracks, however many it was. Obviously, the idea was you'd have 4 players, and each would move their own horse. Right. As an only child, I just tended to move the horses around as I felt like it. If I landed on the appropriate squares to pick cards up, and your horse has died. All right. Your horse has fallen. That's that horse out then. Throw it out the window. him gone then. So yes, we had Totopoly, Monopoly, we just mentioned. Well, everybody has Monopoly. Everybody has what is like a British law. Yeah. Everybody has to. Even McDonald's now have to keep bringing it in periodically. That starts this week. Exactly. That's actually, they did that because they heard what we were going to talk about. That is the one big risk to my health, because I really love the Monopoly promotion at McDonald's. Because I don't like trying to get the stickers. I like it when I get a free fit of food from McDonald's. And I can just walk up to the counter and go, I'll have a free small fries, thank you very much. I want an apple pie that's hotter than the sun, please. What I did one year, and it was the best thing I've ever done, is I would go 3 times a week to McDonald's. I was a student, so it was acceptable then. And I'd order all the food for me and my friends, and then while they were looking, I'd take all the stickers off, and then I'd have a load. And at the end of the offer, I took a handful of these stickers and just put them on the counter and went, that, please. And I ended up with the weirdest McDonald's I've ever had. I had 6 sundaes, about 8 hamburgers, 20 portions of fries, 2 cups of coffee, which I don't even drink, I just poured it in a drain. Because I'm not a vandal, I won't just chuck it on the floor. I poured it in a drain and threw it in a passing child. It was just like, I didn't want any of it really. I wasn't hungry. Loads of apple pies, but they were okay to let go cold. Frankly, it took about a year, but eventually they did. But they were very annoyed with me. Because they said, well, you can't use all these. I said, well, it doesn't say I can't. So you're the reason they changed the rules? I don't even think even now. I don't think that's a rule. I think you still do it. I don't even want to find out. So what I'm going to say now is, if anybody's out there and you're really not that bothered about your free small portion fries, send it to us and we'll go in and just get a bag full of free food. And then we'll record us eating it in time lapse. Special episode. That'll be a special episode of the Back in the Game podcast. Yeah, I'll tuck my iPhone in my pocket with the camera pointing out, and we'll even record the conversation where we go. We could use our headphones. We could. Because then the little headphone bit for the iPhone will just rub against our beards as we each. And we could basically catch the look, see if we can get the look of horror on the woman's face where we just go, we'd like 27 cheeseburgers, please. We'll be paying with these. That's a vine if ever there was one. And then once that's been done, pull out another stack of something else. It could be quite funny. So we'll put this out on Twitter as well. But I doubt anybody will send them, because frankly, nobody wants to give up on a free cheeseburger. No. Well, I don't blame them. I wouldn't. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, the stuff off the save menu, particularly those cheeseburgers, in comparison to the Burger King save menu, the bread on the McDonald's save menu is rapidly less quality than definitely less quality. You're not doing well with your words today. No, I'm having a funny day. It's this new haircut I've got. Yeah, it's very snazzy. Well, I'm having photos. No, I should. I've been having photos taken of me this week that surprisingly aren't shit as well, which is weird. I actually look quite dapper at which I think was the
Dapper.
word that a couple of people have used now. But yeah, the Burger King save money compared to the McDonald's one. I don't know why McDonald's one, they don't have the same bread. It does annoy me. They don't need that cheap bread. It's almost like, and I think the only reason they could justify it is some kids wouldn't want the sesame seeds.
Yep. Okay.
But frankly, they should,
Well.
because they're good for them. They don't really digest very well. They come out in their poo. But if you're a parent and you're still changing nappies at that point, it does add a bit of variety. Like
But
tomatoes.
then would you necessarily be buying your baby pound cheeseburger?
I'm not saying I would, but I have been in McDonald's. I've seen some people do that sort of thing.
Changing the baby at the counter while they order.
Well, they have baby changing facilities in there. I mean, normally nobody think too much about giving a baby the chips to eat, but they're worse than the burger, I dare say. Salt content and stuff.
Maybe.
Either way, we digress.
So,
further.
Monopoly.
So back to Monopoly, which is one of those games that everybody seems to have their own way of playing it.
Yeah, you have the variations.
Yeah, and yet at the same time, everybody seems to like playing it, but nobody ever really knows where they bought their version of Monopoly from.
We've got the Simpsons Monopoly that I bought for Emma because she's a big Monopoly fan.
Varying boards, yeah, you sort of have to choose. But a lot of people have got that one that just seems to be in their cupboard. They don't really know why.
Monopoly seems to be a strange one to me because it's a game that everybody likes playing but also loathes playing at the same time because it has that element of hatred across the table.
It brings out the worst in people as well because you can, especially when you're playing with family and you make an alliance with another player, it can't be anything more than personal. You're just like, yeah, we're going to take them down. Should we take them down? We'll take them down.
There's just that wink across the table, that knowing nod.
Yeah, because like, I will trade this, and everybody else is like, that's clearly a strategic move. Yes, that's right, because we're going to beat you both.
Yep.
And
it's called insider trading, love. What are you going to do about it?
The amount of times I've said, look, I'll let you off if you don't sell that property to them. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's good. I'm just like, yeah, it encourages you to be a bad person. There's a brilliant stand-up routine I watched when I went to see Milton Jones live. His support act did a 15-minute thing about he thinks that everything that's wrong in the world is because of Monopoly. Because every child plays it. And what does it teach you? That the worst thing on the board is paying your tax. That if people who are quite poor come to you, frankly, you can send them to bankruptcy. Yeah. That you go to jail, it's okay as long as you've got 50 quid to just buy your way out of it. Everything that's bad in society, the banking system.
If you control the gas and the water board, you can charge 10 times as much.
Exactly. It's everything that's bad about modern financial situation was in a board game made in the 1930s. And it's kind of creepily accurate in that it does really go through. So, yeah, it's so that's Monopoly. I used to have a game. I've put it on the running order. It's called Incredible Hulk Smash Up.
I noticed that.
This is a weird one. Okay. I got this out of a skip. It was a 1970s board game from Ideal. I have done a little bit of research because I wasn't entirely sure. I hadn't dreamt it. Right. And a lot of, if you type Incredible Hulk Smash into Google for the board game, you get a tie-in board game from the Ang Lee film. Okay. Where you had a Hulk hand, and you made things. You had characters made out of Play-Doh. And things, and you just hit the Play-Doh things. Them, It wasn't much fun from the look of it. No. Not compared to
very simplistic game.
Have you ever played Dizzy Dizzy Dinosaur?
I remember it, but I don't remember playing it.
Dizzy Dizzy Dinosaur, for all intents and purposes, you had a dinosaur that you'd wind up, and you put it in the middle of a board, and it would spin around, and it would fly off in a certain direction after it's spun so many times. And it might then knock over whatever it is you're doing. This is basically Dizzy Dizzy Dinosaur, but we're a Marvel license. Okay. So... but it was better because you are all the Hulk, you're all Bruce Banner, and you're basically trying to build a lab that will cure you of your gamma poisoning. So your lab it's a bit like Hangman, really. You have to get pieces so you can put the walls on and then put the lids on. But while you're building it, you get your rage go up, and if your rage goes up too high, you become the Hulk, and then you have to trigger him, and he might then smash up your lab.
Or you might conversely smash somebody else.
Exactly. Okay. And again, although I wasn't an only child, my sister didn't really want to play an Incredible Hulk game. So I very often would play it on my own and then just deliberately turn the board and try and angle it so it would roll towards the others, even though it was only me I was beating. But again, it was one of those tie-in things that just worked brilliantly. As was the next one on the list, the Back to the Future promo game.
See, I never played this. I didn't think I'd even heard of this until you put it on the...
Have you looked at it?
No.
I try and Google it now.
Okay.
Right?
You talk while I Google.
It is almost impossible to find.
Okay.
I thought, after trying to Google this myself,
Yeah.
I genuinely thought I had dreamt it because it was so bizarre, it couldn't have been a real thing. A board game based on the 1985 Back to the Future film.
Okay.
So this dates it quite clearly to be in either 85, 86 or 87, because by then they started working on the second one.
Yep.
You were a DeLorean driving around in a board which went through different stages of time.
Okay.
And you had to get the metal rod to catch the lightning bolt before you got to the end. But your car was made out of a bit of folded cardboard.
Okay.
And the rod was a bit of cardboard. And the board was a bit of cardboard.
Okay, I think I found it. That look right?
I don't know.
Or is that different Back to the
I don't know if
Future
that is
game
it,
I
actually.
found?
Let me have another look. I don't think that is. I have played that game. Yeah,
Okay.
no, that's not
That's
it.
a different Back to the Future board game.
That's a more complicated version of what
Okay.
I had. So basically, this was the aim. You had to get around and reassemble the DeLorean and get back to the present day.
Okay.
Which is all good. I mean, as you're finding, it's quite difficult to find.
By the way, Back to the Future Pinball has got some very accurate actors.
That is
imitating Doc and
amazing.
Marty.
You're going to have to tweet that out right now or as soon as possible.
Okay, so I'm struggling to find the exact version, I think.
So basically, what
It's Back to
happened
the Future
was...
Monopoly.
Yeah, what happened was Smith's Crisps did a promotion. So here it is. It's on Board Game Geek.
Okay.
If I just bring up the tablet, because I had it on tab, so I could show you, because I did think you'd probably struggle. Here's the board game itself. Right, so it's a very simple board.
Okay, I've just seen a screenshot of that.
There we go.
Yep, I've just been past that, thinking it was a different one.
Yeah, and basically what this was you could send off, if you saved enough crisp packets, you could send off for it.
Okay.
And the whole thing came in like a little tiny box, and then everything had to be assembled. So you've also got on here a picture of the cars, which I'll show you as well. And there you go, it's a tiny little different coloured DeLoreans.
Right.
And you had to get the metal rod and stick in it and stuff. Now the reason I couldn't find it is because I was looking for a retail board game.
And
It was just a promo item from Smith's Crisps. And it's almost impossible to find for anything less than £100 now.
because most people probably would have squashed those crisps. Squashed the cars.
Yeah,
If they were
and it was
cardboard.
cardboard, so it just wouldn't last. But it was one of my favourite games. And I remembered it very clearly, but it really took me a long while to find
to
it.
find what it
Because every time I
was.
searched, I found the one that you found. Or I found the video game.
Different
or-
version.
Yeah, it was very bizarre. But again, that was the sort of thing. Like Monster Munch used to do a thing you could send off and get little LCD. Do you know, that was a thing of the 80s as well, wasn't it? The LCD handheld game.
Oh, with the
Where it'd
little
just be-
round batteries.
Yeah, and you could only move one of 3 different places, like a racing game. You just move to the left, and it just have an animation.
I think
for
I've
it to
still
crash.
got a couple of those stowed in
They
boxes. at home.
did loads of license ones. They did Afterburner, they did Double Dragon, they did Street Fighter, they did Mortal Kombat, and they were great. But they did one for the Monster Munch as well, which was never released. And my ex, her dad was a sales rep for Smith's Crisps, and he got a couple to bring home. So I've had to go on those as well. But yeah, there's all these little weird things that you just seem to pick up in the 80s. You get, and it was always that high pitch beeping noise that would come from those games. But then you get really complicated stuff like Escape from the Lost Valley of the Dinosaurs, which was very bloody complicated for a kids game. Not as complicated as Hero Quest, which was brilliant, and I had it. But I had nobody to play it with. I didn't realise quite what it was. Now, looking back, I wish I'd kept it in good condition because it's worth a reasonable amount of money. But that was just a kind of, it was like Dungeons and Dragons,
Yeah.
but a board game, and it was really good. And I painted all my figures myself at the age of 10 and ruined them.
I think Emma's little brother, well, he's not little now, he's 15 now. He had it at one point, so whether he's still got that stashed away somewhere.
Yeah, it's
Find out.
a very good game. And and that you could build different rooms and things, put doors on, so you knew where you would go in, and it was great. But I got it bought for me because I liked the fighting fantasy books. My mum thought it looked similar. And it was actually, because Fighting Fantasy was supposed to be Dungeons and Dragons in a book form, and this was kind of an easy access Dungeons and Dragons type thing. But Escape from Lost Valley of Dinosaurs was I believe a Waddington's game.
Okay.
I haven't researched this one because I'm trying to go from memory as much as possible.
So this rings a bell as well.
Yeah, if you look at it, you'll remember the adverts. It had a very heavy TV advertising.
Okay, maybe that's
thing.
what it is then.
But you had rubber little dinosaurs.
Okay.
In there, so you had a pterodactyl, you had a T-Rex, you may have also had, I think, a Stegosaurus as well. I can't remember. But there was a volcano. And at a certain point in the game, the volcano would start to erupt.
Right.
Now, you were people going in to get these gold coins and then to get out without getting killed by a dinosaur or killed by lava. And as the game progressed, the lava would then spread out across the board in a certain path.
Okay.
And the dinosaurs would move around, and you'd have to get out, and you had to climb up a waterfall, if I remember right, to get out to the end. And it was quite dramatic, because in the game, it had what is now a big staple of quite adult games, where you have these kind of procedural events happening as part of the game. Now, if you're playing Pandemic, that's what happens when you get an epidemic.
Yeah.
You get these things where suddenly things spread and it gets worse. That was in this game for kids. It was quite stressful. You were like, oh no! I need one more gold coin, but it's the other side of that dinosaur, and if I go around the long way, there's no way I'm going to get out because of lava. But it's very, very good. And again, another one of those that I wish I'd kept, because it's one I'd like to share with the kids. I'll have to try and find a copy.
I've just pulled the Google images up. I recognise the box, but I don't think I ever played it. It's quite. You may well be right. It may have been the advertising that.
But it's dinosaurs and board games. I mean, it was the stuff that in the 80s was what kids liked.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs, future robots, horse racing.
Apparently. Buckaroo was popular.
Buckaroo. Well, that's the thing. Like, we've not really sort of talked about those, but there are those other staples like Pop-Up Pirate, Buckaroo, Kaplunk.
So that was such a simple game.
Yahtzee, Pass the Pigs, Cluedo. Although I've never played Cluedo. My entire life I've never played
Cluedo.
it.
I haven't played for a long, long time.
I always think I'd be very good at Cluedo, because I'm very good at Poirot. Not the
very good at
the program,
Poirot.
Being Poirot. Shave my hair to grow a little sash. But no, like any murder mystery on TV, I'm usually very, very good. If all the evidence is actually there, I can do it. Yeah. But as far as I know with Cluedo, it's more deduction from removing possibilities rather than the facts being there. But yeah, I've never played it. I played the junior version where you try and work out who ate the cake at the summer fair.
Okay.
It's not quite the same, to be honest.
It just leaves you wanting cake.
One day I'd quite like to play Cluedo. Might have to schedule that in for a game night, maybe, and actually play
Have a classic board game night.
Yeah, might be ideal, but no Monopoly.
Too much chance of you'll smash up your shop.
Well, also, if you play it properly, that's a whole night.
Yeah.
A good game of Monopoly should last a few hours.
So that's the other thing. If you ever have a games night, you have to be careful how you order things.
Well, we'll talk about that when we talk about game nights later, because it is a lot trickier than I imagined it would be.
I can imagine you imagining, because I've been through it when we had our own game nights.
So there are all these obviously staples that everybody plays, but these are just like those weird ones that aren't around now.
Yeah.
Like you probably, I mean, there probably is a version of Ghost Castle and Escape Lost Dinosaurs that are available now with sound effects and all sorts. I don't know.
Yeah.
But these were ones that were like, they were in big boxes and they were cool, and they'll go for it. I'll have to get Ghost Castle around and we'll have to play that again overnight.
Sure.
I'll put that in the classic game night.
Yeah.
That's what we'll do, because that's quick enough. And you've got Trivial Pursuit now as well, which is another staple.
Yeah, still is.
Big in the 80s. I think it was new in the 80s, wasn't it?
I don't know when it came out. I just remember we used to play it, say as a family, but if we went round to... It was a chap my dad worked with, because he had one son was my age, one was a little bit older, and so they had like I call it a dinner party for lack of a better word. So obviously we all go off and play with Chris's toys and that. All the adults would have something to eat and a drink, and then they'd end up playing Trivial Pursuit, and we'd normally end up joining them. I'm not sure why, because we were only 11 at the time. But this is kind of at a period before secondary school sets in, when knowing too much makes you a nerd and people go like, ugh. So you're still quite proud to know some of these random answers and these things. So you want to join in and kind of show off a little bit. And well, that probably still remains with me. But yeah, I used to enjoy Trivial Pursuit. I still do. I also managed to raid the Itbox at the Witherspoons in town once. I went out at 12 o'clock with £10 to watch whatever football game it was, World Cup, I think. I came home at 2 a.m. with £20, several sheets to the wind. Only because of that Itbox. It's just like
they can be quite good, because they never assume that you're actually know enough.
Yeah, Trivial Pursuit is great. You can easily get to 3 quid on Trivial Pursuit. So you're trebling your money pretty much.
Well, I've just had a look on Wikipedia. The game was created in 1979 in Canada. And it then was properly released in 1982 and peaked in popularity in 1984. But then
there used to be a television version of it with Tony Slattery.
Came out over here in 1988. So there you go. It was late 80s for us. I was in a pub quiz team that played, a Trivial Pursuit pub team.
Yep.
And I wasn't really supposed to be, because you had to be 18 to go into a lot of pubs, obviously. And they were like, oh no, he's alright, he's with us. And we won the quizzes. because of me. Like, as a 10-year-old, I had better knowledge of most of these drunkards.
Yeah.
It was just like, whoa. I was like, yeah, that's... and it's like you're saying, it is easy to be quite nerdy as a kid because you absorb information so much. And you've got this fascination information that you don't really have time for when you're an adult. And it came to a head. The one game we lost on a misprinted question card. And even to this day, I'm proper bitter about it, and I won't buy a copy of Trivial Pursuit.
Let's not talk about quizzes and being bitter. Because,
Why?
Did Peterborough Phantoms did a quiz night.
Okay.
A promotional thing, their sports club did it. And every team had a player, and then at the halfway point, you swapped in another player. I answered the question correctly, I might add. The second player we got, he was a thick twat. He was one of the most twattish twats I've ever come across, either watching or playing that sport when I still played. And he goes, no, I think it's this. And Emma let him change it, basically because apparently he was pretty. I'm still bitter because we lost by 1 point. In fact, no, we lost by half a point. We'd have won had he not changed the answer. Jeez. Yes, I am bitter.
Well, this one, this is on a par with that.
Yeah. Oh.
Name the postmistress in Postman Pat.
I honestly couldn't.
Right, it's Mrs. Goggins.
Okay.
The question card said her name was Mrs. Scoggins with an S.
Okay.
Well, it definitely wasn't. And this is a day before the internet, so we couldn't even just go, bloody check that, because that is wrong. Instead, there was a 10-year-old kid standing in a pub, fronting up to 4 beardy 40-year-old boozer hounds, going, no, that's wrong, with my horrible prepubescent voice. No, it's definitely Mrs. Goggins. I know, because I watch it. And they wouldn't allow it. And so we lost, because I was adamant it was Goggins. And even now, I mean, I never have checked this on Google. I've always just maintained that I was correct. Right. But this now this is where it could be. Postman Pat. This is Goggins. There we go. Mrs. Goggins. Yep. So it was Mrs. Goggins. It was just a misprint. But they called her Scoggins, which clearly it wasn't. But there you go. So even now, I won't own a copy of Trivial Pursuit. I played it on consoles and things. That's fine. I have no issue with that. They can do that. If you bought some Trivial Pursuit Christmas crackers with questions in, absolutely fine. But the board game itself can just solve. We had the Genus and the Genus 2 editions and a family edition, which is quite good because you could just use the kids' questions to thick people. Yeah. So Pretty Boy would have been alright.
Well, a Family Guy.
Yeah.
What colour is the red fire engine? Ooh.
There's during Saturday Night Live recently celebrated its 30th anniversary.
Yeah.
What is it, 40?
30.
No, it must have been 40 because they were doing that in the 70s.
It must have been then.
Yeah.
Stand corrected.
Well, I assume. Anyways, because the Blues Brothers was a spin-off of Saturday Night Live sketch, and that was 1980, so it must have been longer than that. But they did have celebrities come back who were stalwarts, and they had Will Ferrell went back, and Will Ferrell used to do a routine where he'd be Alex Trebek hosting Jeopardy. So he was doing Celebrity Jeopardy, and then different guests were playing things. And one of the guests in the old versions was a kind of sleazy Sean Connery. Yeah. And one of the questions was let it snow. That was it. The question was let it snow. And he went, I'll take let it now for £20. Because it's not, it doesn't say it. It says let it snow. No, it doesn't. It says let it now. He goes, that's not even a thing. He goes, yes, it is. It's French. Show me let it now. It was just misreading of it. It was hilarious, but they were getting all these celebrities just doing it wrong. They had Justin Bieber, who just kind of like it's not like the answer, but he'd go, yeah, but it's important, just keep it real. He'd just do a pose, or like pull his hood up. And Alex Trebek was getting more and more annoyed, and it just went. There's a question about books and reading. I probably won't touch that one at all. And it goes through, and it goes, what colour is an orange? Which is like these stupid questions. Like one of the rounds, I think, was something like, the answer is that. Because it's just these bizarre little weird things that he still managed to get wrong, and had loads of guest stars. But that kind of it's always a good joke when you kind of take stupid people who are supposed to be clever. But if you haven't seen that video, it's well worth a look. It's very, very funny. But yeah, so it's kind of it seemed to have its heyday. Like when you were a kid, just board games are a thing. Yeah. But yet now, I don't think you'd get a load of 10-year-olds playing board games.
No.
Not unless the adults are consciously making their kids play. I don't think you'd find many asking for them at Christmas. Or
I think if it was the Wii version of Monopoly, they're probably more inclined to play it than the physical version.
Yeah. It's bizarre. Like I said, my kids, I've bought Ghost Castle for them, and I try and make sure they get. Upstairs, I've got Atmosfear. We didn't talk about. Which, I did put it on there.
You did put it on
which
there.
was a brilliant game. Did you ever play it?
I think I managed to start. Or we started playing it maybe once.
Yeah,
because you couldn't really play that one on your own.
No,
others you could improvise, like we said. You could improvise with Hulk Smash.
Yeah.
And you could improvise things like Totopoly. You could even, to a point, improvise with like Monopoly a little bit, and kind of in your own little imagination.
Atmosphere, you definitely couldn't.
Yeah,
this is a weird one because you had a VHS. Yeah, you had a VHS tape. That was the big appeal here.
Yep.
So you put the tape in, and it was an hour long.
Yep.
And you play it, and at certain points you pull a card, and it might say at 52 minutes, scream. If anybody jumps, you take something from them. And there's all these weird, like, time-related things, and they'd be like, you've got to stay quiet, and the screen would suddenly shout at you. And it was a brilliant interactive way of doing games. But because it was a VHS tape, it was just the one run, so you knew what was going to happen the next time. So it was a lot. Well, my kids upstairs, we've got Atmosfear, Khufu the Mummy, which is one of the add-on packs. They did these packs. We've got another tape.
Yes.
So they did Baron Sandy. They did Khufu the Mummy, and I believe they did a fourth one, but I can't remember whether it was a vampire one.
I've got a feeling it was. I vaguely remember it being advertised.
Yeah.
Sure it was a vampire based.
And again, these were big on TV as well.
It's huge advertising.
Now you get kind of adverts on TV for things like Piranha Panic and these weird kind of tactile games. But then you do big campaigns. But now we've got one which is Khufu the Mummy. It's a DVD. So it actually randomly plays sections as well, so you don't get the same gameplay every time. But we'll play that as well. And that could be quite good fun with my housemates, or just perhaps bring around and you and Emma, and we'll play a few games like that, and we'll do a follow-up show at a later date. So now obviously we've got that ground in. Now we're adults, and there's a whole new world of games to play and to share with kids, because a lot of them are just as accessible, but it now seems that the price points and stuff have improved. So we'll talk about that after we've heard from Dalek, who's going to talk about some apps that are related to board and card games.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Come on. He's got opinion and posted suggestion, but never reveals his name. Read by someone, taken as a good one, but nobody knows who wrote it. Few lies of the sentence lie, anonymity annoying me all the time. It's like a 2-channel where people just throw their anger, forget about those foul actions.
This week on The Holocaust, as you've no doubt been informed by the memo from upper management, we're talking about traditional games. Now, hardcore traditional games is a rich gaming culture that many gamers miss out on due to not having access to that one club at university that had all the really cool board games imported from Germany and with translated instructions that the members had printed off from Newsnet groups. And that's a shame, but it often has the tragic result of leading to you being the one bloke at the party trying to teach the rules of Elfenland to people who want to talk about the footy. Help is at hand though. Much in the same way that Tin Man Games is currently saving a new generation from having never experienced Steve Jackson's sorcery, the hardcore TG scene has been gradually creeping into the mobile scene for the last several years, and as a result, for the price of a few quid, you never again need to be without a partner for Carcassonne, Settlers of Catan, Ticket to Ride, Elder Sign Omens, and even Talisman. Yes, Talisman! If you want to experience a brand new board game IP on your phone or tablet though, may I heartily recommend Card Dungeon. It's a traditional roguelike in most regards, except that the player's spells and attacks are determined by the 3 cards the player has in his or her hand. New cards are found throughout play, and the player needs to choose whether to swap them out or whether to risk hanging on to more powerful cards as they gradually wear out. The presentation of the game is immaculate, with the dungeon tiles resembling tile cards and each monster being a flat cardboard cutout with stats printed on the base. And I assure you that my endorsement of this game has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that it is stuffed to the chuffing gills with Dark Souls references. While it's not an original IP, I'm also quite chuffed with my discovery of Mr. Jack. This is a simple tile puzzle game in which Sherlock Holmes has to catch Jack the Ripper. This takes place on a 3x3 grid of T-shaped road tiles populated by suspect counters, while 3 detective counters representing Holmes, Watson and Watson's unkillable dog move around the outside. One player moves the pieces and rotates the tiles to give the direct detective's line of sight on as many suspects as possible, while the other player does the same in an attempt to sabotage the game. And that's it. If you like your board games very fast, very simple, and utterly head-scratching, you'll find it very rewarding. Now, it's got nothing to do with traditional games, but I can't go away this week without giving a hearty nod in the direction of Rovio's new baby, Angry Birds Stellar Pop. It stands head and shoulders above the popular Puzzle Bubble clones available on mobiles such as Bubble Witch and Panda Pop, which should recommend it all by itself, but Rovio really has outdone itself with the presentation. The graphical style and wonderful music are a breed apart for the franchise and make the game feel more like a Rayman product than an Angry Birds. Well, that's all from me. You can follow me at The Voice of Sex, watch me on YouTube at Sex Talks About Apps, where I've been talking a lot about rabbits and Spider-Man, and don't miss the new show starring me and Mark, The Holocaust Tube Blockers.
There we go.
So there you go. As good as ever.
Always.
Some good apps in there. He did make a slight mistake, though. He did say that Tin Man Games made Sorcery app. That was Inkle. Tin Man did the Fighting Fantasy. Inkle did the Sorcery books.
We'll get the lawyers onto it in case they try and sue us.
It's nice, though, because it does prove that Dalek is human after all.
Wow.
Well, it's either that or he's a dancer,
Maybe.
according to the killers. His signs are vital.
It's true.
And my knees are brown? No, that can't be right.
Oh, not this again.
And I'm not. No, that's it. No, the signs are vital. Because he's on my knees looking for the answers. Are we human or are we dancers?
So, on next week's show, we'll be discussing the music of the Manic Street Preachers.
No, it's the killers.
I know. That's what I'm...
What?
Doesn't matter.
I'm getting confused, am I?
Well, we're talking about the killers this week, apparently. So next week will be the Manics.
Ah, right. No, it won't. It won't. Because I'm still sad about the Manics being so good. And the last time I watched them and genuinely appreciated the performance, it was on the One show. And that's annoying. Because it shouldn't be the One show that reminds me how good they were.
That's actually very true.
/are, but were, definitely. They were talking about their interview. This is how ham-fisted the One show interview was. I mean, it's very clear. Anybody who likes the music of the Manic Street Preachers knows the story behind If We Tolerate This.
Yeah.
Very, very clear. There's not like it's not a subtle message it's trying to make. Very clear.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, was there anything that inspired you to write that song? Oh, I wonder. Maybe maybe all the music video and the connotation of the lyrics and the fact that it's fucking 20 odd years since that song came out and Wikipedia's a thing. Is that how bad your research is? That you're like, hey, we might have a scoop here. I think there might be some subtle hidden meaning to that song. Very bizarre. Oh, it did annoy me. But they did an acoustic, because they put out a new album, and it was an acoustic version of one of their older songs, and they're just still as good. In fact, the vocals were slightly better, because I think when you get older, their music lended well to a kind of a broken voice.
Yeah.
And it did go well.
I think generally with a lot of these bands, that sort of stuff does improve. You look at the Foo Fighters. When they first started and where Dave Grohl was then to now. Yeah.
Anyway, enough about music.
Yeah.
We talked about Manic Street Preachers enough. So we'll have to do them next week.
Oh,
game nights. Now, we touched about this earlier.
Yeah.
Obviously, you said it is stressful. It bloody well is stressful. Try working them in a business where you have to put a table up where there's no room for a table.
Try and work out where you've got to put
That's
a table.
hard enough. But, yeah, I've hosted 2 now at the shop. Game Night 1 and Game Night 2. The Revenge. Game Night 1 we played, I think I talked about it later on the show, we played Pandemic, which we will have go on another time, because that's very good. We played Zombie Dice, which you've had a look at. I've got that here on a dice tray, so we can actually do sound effects of I do like that noise. That's actually more the marbles in there, actually, than the dice. The dice is more...
velvety black sack.
There's the dice. I got 2 brains in that one. Very good. Which is, it was very simple. And it was a very successful night. We raised money for Doctors Without Borders. We had about 10 people turn up, make donations, and it was a very enjoyable evening. So we thought we'd do a second one.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I was ill, so we couldn't do it. Rescheduled it. We played Splendor, which is the game I've talked about before, where you're kind of trading gems for cards. And a friend of mine, Gareth, bought Machikori, which is a similar kind of game, actually. You basically start off with 4 cards, which represent certain buildings in a city. Right. So I think there's a theme park, maybe a TV tower, something else and something else. And the aim is to turn over those cards, and they have a coin value. So you've got to amass enough coins to be able to buy those. And you get those by using cards that, if somebody rolls a certain dice, you might have a card that if another player rolls a 4, you take 2 coins. So do you buy that card and hope that somebody rolls a 4 so you'll get 2 coins? Or do you buy a card that will almost guarantee you a coin every time? And so you have to kind of choose which card you have, and then you gain your coins and buy them. It's very good. Very, very good game. I've never played it before. Really, really enjoyed it. It was one of those that it seemed quite overwhelming, which a lot of board games do.
A lot of ones that have, I want to say, sprung up recently. It's probably not fair on some of them because they've been around longer.
Yeah.
And they've more recently gained popularity, might be a better way to describe it. But a lot of them on the surface do seem quite complex.
Yeah.
I'm sure once you get into them, it becomes second nature. Same as anything. I'm sure people probably feel that way about in video games as well.
Yeah, like that's the exact example I was going to use. So, for example, if I said to you, this game plays like Call of Duty, you would know exactly what to expect. What button would you hold to look down the trigger, look down the sights?
Left trigger.
Yeah, exactly, right? And you use right trigger to shoot.
I actually have to think about that. I just do it naturally now to the point where...
Well, that's the point. Like, that's the established rule. So, you might have a game like Legendary, which we'll talk about in a minute, where there is an established set of rules. So you have your action phase, and you have your buying phase, and then you have your clearing phase, and stuff like that. And a lot of games have those same general principles. So it's like the difference between a platform and a shooter game. Yeah. You might have one which is a resource management game. You might have one which is a co-op survival game, or whatever. But they generally have similarities that are enough to kind of make you step up the next level. And that's the kind of the big appeal. Now, you were saying about the gain popularity. I think that's... I think it's gain exposure and become more widespread. Because if you think about how popular Dungeons & Dragons was in the 70s, massively popular, but would you say the majority of the world was playing it?
No.
No, but it was, you knew about it. I've never played it as a proper game.
No, I haven't.
But I've always wanted to, but I've known what it is since I was a kid. So that's the thing, like a lot of these board games have been around for an awful long time. My friend Gareth, he's like my kind of... what's the best way to describe him? He's like E.T. to my Elliot. He's like showing me all these wonderful things. So he's got basically 3 big bookcases full of games.
Show me on the doll where he touched you.
He couldn't reach. He's got tiny legs. He has short legs than my son, which is very weird. Yeah, tiny legs. He's all body and no legs.
Kind of reminds me of Jay Sherman from The Simpsons.
Yeah,
but with a beard.
Why
does he know the entire Oscar Mayer Wiener song?
He probably does.
There we go.
Very briefly, well, just a slight diversion off of board games onto Tapped Out.
Yeah.
Have you unlocked Death Mountain yet?
No, I probably will do by the time I get home and.
You'll be very excited to know that because you have Hank Scorpio, you'll have an extra quest. Because Hank Scorpio and Dutch Colossus get into a bit of a, well, my base is better than your base. So you get that exclusive one that I won't be able to play. So you'll have to tell me about that. One, I want screenshots of conversations.
I've even, as I mentioned, I rejigged my town.
Yeah.
And when I saw that Death Mountain was one of the unlockables, I have rejigged it so it can sit directly next to it.
It is about the same size as that one.
Exactly. That's why I did it. I thought it's got to be roughly the same. And I have seen it in somebody else's town.
Yeah.
It might be in yours. And so I thought, I've kind of got to leave it a space. If I'm going to have 2 mountains, they should be next to each other. This isn't The Hobbit. This isn't The Lonely Mountain. So I'm glad I have now.
Yeah. That's it. I thought
perfect forethought on my part.
I just wanted to see a look of joy on your face now. So what was I saying? General rules and things across. Oh, Gareth. He's E.T. to my Elliot. Yep. So he's basically got all these bookcases full of games.
That was the point where you wound it back.
And I'll say, there was this game I'd heard of. It'd be like the Mad King Ludwig or whatever. And he'll go, yeah, I've got that. That's it. And he'll say, I've got that. And there was one game which I'd heard of, and it won. There's a podcast called Shut Up and Sit Down.
Okay.
and they basically awarded the game of the year that they'd played to this one game. And I said, "Oh, they got that." And he goes, "Oh yeah, that was out in the 70s." But bizarre. It's like they. But that's the thing. You just suddenly encounter these games. So you might go around to a game night, and this is the kind of point is, and we've touched on it in previous shows that if I had, would I justify spending £100 on Marvel Legendary just for me? Yes, because it's bloody beautiful. I mean, look at it. It is glorious.
I mean, that's just the lid you're showing me right now.
I mean, you've had a look through this earlier, didn't we? We showed you some of the cards.
With a little flick through while we were getting
expansion packs. I mean, when you think I've got 3 expansion packs mixed in there as well, and there's still room for more.
Let me clear your space.
Thank you very much. So these are all my characters. Yep. So there's dozens and dozens of those. So you can sort of pull out I think they're the dividers. Oh, So who have you picked?
Oh, right, okay.
So you've got Groot.
Okay.
And then obviously from there you can kind of look at all the different effects and things, and that would shuffle in if you're playing the Guardian set. And there's a lot of money there. I mean, this is probably 120, 130 quid by the time I bought the expansions for it. And there are more to get.
I'll let you put it back properly. So.
Thank you. Well, I always turn the divider card. There you go, people listening at home, if you want a tip. If you want to
turn your divider cards.
Turn divider cards in. But yeah, and so you go through and you pick all your things. But I wouldn't have bought that just off the box.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of money. But I went to Gareth's house and he said, "Oh, this is an ideal game for you and your kids because you like Marvel." Set it up, we played a game, we won, luckily, because that's always a good
So then you bought it, actually?
Well, actually, every game he showed me, I bought as soon as I've had the available funds. That was costly, so wait till Christmas. I used Christmas money to buy it. The kids chipped in and bought an expansion pack each. So my youngest got the Guardians of the Galaxy one.
Did they choose to chip in and buy it each? Or did you just go, right, you're paying for this?
I created the illusion of choice. So my youngest got Guardians. My daughter got Paint 'em Town Red, which was different Spider-Man villains and heroes, including Moon Knight, who is underrated as far as I'm concerned. And then the Legendary Fantastic Four, which this one's going to be because the comics are finished now.
Yep.
And they're not obviously doing it well. And they did kill off the Fantastic Four. Spoilers for if you're not.
But it is the Marvel universe, so people get killed off and brought back all the time.
Well, obviously now we've got the film coming as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people expecting that to be a mass problem. The Guardians of the Galaxy set I got for 20 quid. And I think the next week on Amazon it's shot up to 45.
I remember you mentioning this actually. Yeah.
It's and this is the weird thing about board games. Like I could buy this board game and it's not really going to lose much value. Like you bought a computer game, you've played it for a week, you've lost a tenner immediately.
Yeah.
If you think how much it would cost to get a copy of the First Prince of Space Hulk when that's not in print, I mean that's a game that I've known people to pay 200 quid for a game because they're like, I want that one seminal war game that's no longer in print. And I dare say if I wanted to get Escape from Dinosaur Island in pristine condition, I'd probably have to pay a lot. When I was a kid, another game I didn't talk about when I was on the running order because I totally forgot about it until now. I used to play a game with my granddad called Don't Miss the Boat. And it was
This rings a bell.
Yeah, well, I've had it. I think I may have shown you it.
Okay, maybe that's
I managed to buy a copy. It's an old 1960 game. It was only in print for about 3 years. And I had to buy 2 versions of it to get a full set of everything. Okay. So it had a cardboard board, which kind of had a circular river around it. You had 4 plastic boats, and you had little counters like you would have in, not Ludo, those kind of.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah, like, a bit like a Cluedo one as well. Actually, very big at the bottom, going to the point. And you'd have 4. And you'd have to move them and jump in a boat. So you can only move like 6 moves, say. Okay. But you can move one of them 2, one of them 2, one of them 2, or you can move 1 to 6. But if you get one into a boat, all the boats rotate round a quarter of the board.
Right.
So the strategy is to try and get them ahead of the boats, so you can drop one in.
So then when the board moves, you're ready to go.
Exactly. And it was a brilliant game. But like I said, only in print for a little while. And I had to buy 2 versions, get a complete set because I really wanted to play it again and I hadn't seen it for, forever. One I had to import from America and the other one I bought. I think I paid about 70 quid for these 2 board games. And it's still as good as I remembered it. But I had no qualms whatsoever. For me, I had to get those games in. Yeah. And that's the thing, if Legendary, once that stopped being printed, it's only ever going to go up in value. Yeah. It's a good game. I mean, obviously there are shit games that won't get printed and people won't want. But then maybe the fact that they didn't sell very well, if suddenly the designer makes something else that's very good, it'll be like when a musician does something and there's an old actor, you suddenly get there's a weird popularity boost.
Spike.
But yeah, so like the Guardians of the Galaxy, it was just in low supply, and the film was very popular. When that came out, of course, they didn't know 100% how well the film was going to do. Obviously, it's a Marvel film's going to do okay, but it was a risky venture, as we've discussed.
We talked about previously, yeah.
So we all obviously have to set that up. But with a game night, it allows you to go in, and as I say, with Gareth, it means I can go around his. I played Rampage with him. Mm-hmm. Now, Rampage, or as it's now called, Terror in Meeple City, because they got sued for using the Rampage video game artwork basically on the box. And to be honest, it was a ballsy move to basically name your game after a video game, put your giant dinosaur like the giant dinosaur video game, and have the plot of the game be the plot of the video game, pretty much. But they got away with it for a little while. And now the game exists, and it's essentially you're a dinosaur, and you lift the dinosaur up, and you got a little token, and you flick it across the board. And wherever it lands, that's where you get to. And if you get close to a building, you can hold your dice up and drop it on the building. And if you knock the little meeple off, you can eat them. And it's very simple. Yeah. Took it to his house. Went to his house. I said, could I play it? Because I wanted to play it for a while. I want to buy it, but it was what I wanted to try. It's a bit setting up, but yeah, it's absolutely fine. Turns out I am rubbish at flicking little counters. That's what I learned from that. I'm quite good at throwing things. Like, if I wanted to, I mean, right now...
So, basically, it would be completely pointless me setting up a Sabutio table for either of us.
Do you know, you say that, I played Sabutio here, and, pretty much I was rubbish at that as well.
See, the problem is, everybody has a false impression of how easy it is to control the ball in Sabutio from the adverts.
Yeah.
We've blatantly got people who've been practicing for hours to be in this
also,
advert.
how, like, the little flick to try and dribble it, like... It kind of go through, but also the silly rules, like if the ball touches another player, it's wrong, and if you go through, or if you touch another player, it's bizarre. Right, so I'm going to throw this at that power charger over there, right?
Yeah.
And I missed it, but I got very close. Like that is nowhere near.
You sound like me playing golf.
This is how I would play. So that's Gareth over there, where that power charger is, and this is me with my thing.
Okay. Right.
That drops straight down on the floor.
Like me playing golf.
I basically. At one point, he was filming it in slow motion on a slow
motion camera.
Well, I think he's got the new iPhone, which I think has it as a.
I've got it on mine. So.
Yeah, and so he had me, and it was there. It was like flick, and it just basically dribbled off the end of my character and fell on the floor. Awful. I was awful at it. I even got a video of me dropping a dinosaur. Now I'm here, so there's the building. Yep. I'm holding it.
Yep.
And I missed the building completely, just dropped down the side of it.
So if the building's on your coffee table, you're probably 30 to 50 centimetres above it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just trying to explain for the people at home.
Yeah.
Because you're going, I'm here, and it's
course,
here.
Yeah. So basically,
you're showing me.
For the one, if you want a better description, take your hand currently right now and put it on your knee. That's how difficult that should have been. And I missed it completely. Yeah. It was so ridiculous. But I enjoyed it.
You nearly missed your knee then.
The only reason I lost that game is I have learnt one thing about board games. I totally misunderstand some rules.
Okay.
So I was told for every set of colour I have...
pretty fundamental flaw to have in a board game.
Sets of colours give you points.
Okay.
That's what I was told.
Right.
So I was thinking, right, I want all those black ones.
Yep.
Because that'll give me a load of points. No, that's not what that rule meant. Sets of colours. So you need one red, one black, one green. Yep. So I only had one red. So the whole game, I got 1 point for that. Even though I'd eaten dozens and dozens of people, it didn't count because I only had that one red one. So that puts a real element of strategy in because you can do really well but lose massively. And it was a great fun game. But again, for 30 quid... It's not too much of a roll of the dice to gamble on it, but it's nice if you can play it with somebody who knows the rules.
See, that's the other thing. Some of the games on the surface may... I won't say feel expensive, because you say 30 quid. But once you paid for it, you paid for it.
Yeah.
And that will literally last decades.
And that's the thing. Like, if you play... People who pay 50 quid for a video game, they'll finish in 8 hours and then never touch again.
Yeah.
I mean, you might only touch a board game once a month, once every 3 months. But you can always go back to it and have a slightly different experience. Yeah. And it's like why we enjoy things like Fallout. Is that you could go back to Fallout and play it your own way.
And have a different experience every time.
And I could pick up Legend and go, right, this time we're going to take on Carnage.
Yeah.
Or we're going to take on Magneto or whatever. We can just play around with it and have this different experience. And that's the thing with Rampage. Like, we worked out that the more people that play that, the better. Because it's just going to be complete bedlam.
Carnage, yeah.
And it should be, because that's what that game's about. Then the second game we played that night was a game called Concept. Now, Concept is, in my mind, possibly the best game I've ever played
Right.
of its kind.
Okay.
You will love it.
Mm-hmm.
Emma would love it.
Okay.
Imagine Pictionary,
Okay.
but without drawing anything.
Okay. Charades.
No.
Okay.
Imagine you've now got a board in front of you,
Okay.
and on the board there are loads of different icons that represent different things.
Yep.
So it might be girl, boy,
Okay.
might be water, fire, but that could also be wet or hot.
Yep.
So you've got to describe Statue of Liberty.
Okay.
So you could go country,
America.
America. You could have art, sculpture, painting. You could have green.
Yeah.
And for country, you would have country, but you then do like red, white, and blue because you can't just have America. You got to think of the concept of what it is.
Okay.
So you're breaking something down into this, and it's almost like into
Very
a coding
base.
language. It's like take all these elements, and if you combine them correctly. Now, the reason I think it's brilliant is I totally overestimate the ability of other people to have the same knowledge I have.
Okay.
For example, on the card you have a lot of different options that give you different points depending on difficulty. I got Janine Garofalo, right? Now I know a lot about Janine Garofalo because I quite fancied her as the bowler in Mystery Men.
Right.
She's not the most good-looking woman in the world, but as a teenager, that was something that really did it for me. Just a goth with a bowling ball.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, of course, Janine Garofalo, that's obvious. So I did Mystery Men, bowling, female actress. Wasn't sure if she was gay or not, so I had to use Wikipedia because I couldn't remember which way she was. And I was looking at it thinking, it's obvious, it's right there, it's Janine Garofalo. He was like, I've no idea. And I said, it's Janine Garofalo. He went, I've no idea who that is. And what's amazing about it was, I was so annoyed at him for not knowing Janine Garofalo that I then gave a 10-minute lecture on the films of Janine Garofalo. It just made me think, I kind of overthought that question.
You did.
But why put that on the card? Like, it's clear that's what that game wants you to do.
Yeah.
It wants you to really kind of think, are the people I play this game with going to know this
Janine
stuff?
Garofalo.
Yeah. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Shrek was a good one because it was just a person, fictional, green. That's all I put down. I went, film. And you have these like sub-clues. So you have the main one, which will give you the straight answer. But then you can also say film character. You can say the actor that played him was Canadian or whatever you want to do. And but it's a fantastic way of doing it, where you have to really start to think how other people would interpret what you're giving them. And it comes down to kind of, as my kind of answer about how to describe procedural gaming, in that you can give the same set of instructions to two people, and one person will see something vastly different. Because if you look at fire and you're thinking fire, it might be something else. Like, for example, Gareth did, it was a sport, it was a boxer, and then the sub thing was eating and an ear.
So Mike Tyson.
Well, I thought the answer was cauliflower ear.
Right.
Because in my head, that was the obvious one. Because I got boxing from the cauliflower ear bit.
Okay.
Because it could be.
See, until you said ear, I was thinking George Foreman grill.
And that's the point. Like, depending on where exactly you put these icons, if you know it in your head, you've got to think, it's not how I would do it, it's how can I make it so obvious for everybody else. It's a really, really good game.
So what we've established is, if me and Gareth played, would be brilliant. But we'd both be rubbish playing with you.
But I was rubbish at his. Like, he had quite obvious answers. I mean, that's the thing. It can seem the most obvious thing in the world, and you look at it and you just go, I don't know. I have no idea. And he'd be like, no, come on. It's like when you're doing, but it is like when you're doing Pictionary. And you're like, look, it's there. You're like just tapping the ball.
Come on, you know what this is. You know what this is.
Crop rotation of the early 18th century, obviously.
Is it a jackal? A jackal. Is it a jackal? A jackal. Is it a jackal?
But yeah,
that's a door.
But that for me, that's what I like about a game. It's when you get to the point where you're kind of so infuriated that people can't get what you're getting at, but then you realise it's because you're stupid and you're getting it wrong yourself. It's another one that I will be. If I can't get it, I'll probably borrow it off and bring it around because it is.
Definitely, that sounds
glorious.
Actually, that sounds really good fun.
Yeah, it's like I said. It's on. If you look at it, it's the most overwhelming. I've got a photo of it. Yeah. It's the most overwhelming thing you could possibly imagine. Like, it's just this very, very bizarre board that has no real grounding in reality at all. But then it is essential for that game to work. Because I've got loads of photos, because this was the Rampage. I'll show you the Rampage one. I'll put these on the article as well. So that's actually the city you build, right, and then smash up with your monsters and things. So that's quite good. Concept board. Here. There we go. So closer. So you have like large, small, wide, narrow, top, pointy, or whatever.
Yep.
And like I say, you can literally just take it in whichever way you want.
Okay.
So fire could be hot, cooked, heat, sun, anything really.
Yeah.
It's just break it down to its
base elements.
But again, I wouldn't have looked at that game. It would have looked like one of those kind of after dinner games for 40 plus.
Okay.
Like from the box, that's kind of the heat.
Yeah.
Like categories and
Dictionary,
articulate and stuff like that, where they're like, well, if you don't know people very much, they're a good laugh, but they're quite cerebral. That's what that game would have said to me. But actually, it would be ideal for that.
Yeah.
But it's also, as a game, there is a real solid game there, whereas with Pictionary, there's not really a game.
So is there a time limit then?
Well, we didn't have a time limit. Okay. I mean, Janine Garofalo, frankly, doesn't deserve a time limit because you need to give that some proper thought. Yeah. If you're trying to work out how to explain to me,
I'll be honest, I've heard the name, I've seen Miss Joan, but I'd still be there now.
Yeah, he was. I think I could have shown him a picture and written the word Janine Garofalo in pen on the board, and he still would have gone, I have no idea what you're talking about. It was... But that's the point. Like, you have to then start to really get into the head of the people you're playing with and then think, like, do I risk it? Is it worth the risk? Because you don't know. 100%. So hopefully a closer group of friends would be good at that. But that's, again, the idea of these game nights is you're playing a game that you may not have played. We played Splendour at Game Night 2 because Postman Gav came. Mm-hmm. It was very nice for him to come over. Yeah. I got him to sign a couple of copies of Despicable Me while he was there. And... He said...
he has to take the moon back now.
Yes. Oh, we love you really, Gav. But yeah, he drove a fair old distance to come, and he did say there was one game he was really quite looking forward to trying because he was thinking of playing, which was Splendour. And he came and played it, went home at night and he ordered it. And that can be the difference. Yeah. Darren, who... Oh no, did he order it? I can't remember if he did. I know Darren definitely ordered Splendour. I think Gav ordered Legendary.
Okay.
Even though he didn't play it. We just talked about it for about 10 minutes and that was enough to persuade him. But that's the kind of thing.
He's kind of gone mad with power now because his then fiancée basically wouldn't let him buy anything until they got married.
Yeah.
Now they're married, he's going on a spree.
Well, he was telling me about a game which I'd never heard about, and I try to remember the name. It might be Flashpoint or something like that, but it's a co-op game in the vein of Pandemic, but you're firefighters trying to contain a fire, which again had a good appeal. And he said that his partner ended up playing that. He went down one night in the middle of the night, and there she was just playing it on hardest difficulty on her own, and she beat it. Yeah, and that is the cool thing about it. Like, there's just, and I'd never heard that.
And that's what we were saying before we started recording. That we kind of touched on it a little bit. The games we remember as kids. Some of those games you just can't play on your own.
No,
or you don't always want to get into that competitive type game situation, like Monopoly. Me and Emma just can't play it together. We're just both too competitive to play Monopoly as a one-on-one.
Yeah.
So to have those games you can play cooperatively, actually that's a really great option to have. Because you just don't want, as I said, you don't want to get into that kind of competitive thing. Some nights you're like, look, let's do something that isn't watching the same shite on TV that we watch all the time.
Yeah.
And isn't me staring at a laptop screen while you stare at your phone. So it's nice to have maybe that option to say, right, well, why don't we play Pandemic?
Yeah, and this is it. I mean, so Pandemic, obviously, you were saying that's a
that's an example.
Legendary, perfect card game.
There we go.
So I mean, at the moment we looked at it. It was a reference guide that said if you're two players, you play against this many people or whatever. But then at the same time, you also got in the rule set solo play. Yep. You can also play it as single player. Here are the adjustments you need to make, and that's the point. They're realising now that there are people who don't play.
Yeah.
Social. I'll be coming back later to another way of playing these games that can make it a lot more accessible to people. Yeah. We'll talk about that in the last section of the show. But yeah, these card games do exist and they're very, very good because to a point, it's the entire antithesis of what Monopoly is in the sense that the closer you play, the better chance of success. It's like any card game on an Xbox or other consoles are available. Like if you both run off, you might get to the point somehow, but if you stay together, you'd like to get there a lot quicker. And whenever I played Pandemic with the kids, we kind of changed the rules slightly in that we choose the roles that we're playing as, because certain roles will make the game slightly easier. So we will say, right, to stack the odds in our favour a little bit, we'll choose these ones.
But that's not dissimilar to a lot of other games, both video games and physical games.
Yeah.
Once you know a game,
well, this is
the way you approach it changes.
Yeah, and also,
Destiny is a perfect example of this. If you're doing this raid, this strike, and you've got multiple characters you can choose from. Like, I mean, I've got one of each class. Or, you know, you can say, well, actually, it's pretty useful being a warlock on this one or a titan on this one. And the same principle applies to board games.
Yeah.
You're like, well, you know, you can be a medic in this game. That's actually really fucking useful.
Yeah.
Because you take so many health hit points.
Exactly.
To have a medic in your group is really useful.
Yeah.
So,
and this is the thing, I mean, with the going through them out, I mean, the instruction book for Legendary is not massive in the world of instruction books for games.
No.
It's 22 pages long.
that's
But
kind of what you want.
It also has this adjusting difficulty thing.
Yep.
So, again, you can make it harder. It's not like the old days where you had a board game and you just played it. Almost like these custom rules for Monopoly, they're kind of taking into account, well, actually, if you put in a couple of extra enemies and take out a couple of your supports, or make it so you've only got the low-level stuff compared to high-level stuff, by changing how you build the deck, you can vastly affect actually your odds of winning.
Yeah.
Which makes it so even when you've been playing it for a long while, you can still have that massive challenge. Yeah. Which, you know, you don't usually get. You don't get difficulty levels of board games, but you do, and they have been for a while. It's something that's there and goes through. But like I said, we'll definitely have to organise something to come over, and I'll bring a stack of games.
Well, we've got Ticket to Ride, which
I haven't played.
No,
so
you've
that'd
never
be
played
good
it?
to.
Oh,
no,
right.
so we'll perhaps have to go for that.
Well, I know it's one of Emma's favourites. I bought it for her for Christmas a couple of years ago. You do need... three's probably the minimum, I'd say, you could use. I think two, although you could do it, because there's only two of you, the map ends up being a little bit too open, I think. You'd have too many options to choose different routes to get to places to pick stuff up. But yeah, we'll definitely play that one because that's quite good. And I quite enjoy that one.
And this is the other part of the game night thing that's come out, which is quite interesting, is we were talking about Kickstarter. Now, Kickstarter's a brilliant place for board games to get made. So
we've mentioned this on previous episodes.
Well, Cards Against Humanity was Kickstarter. It probably would exist, but it definitely wouldn't have had the exposure that it's got because of it. And people who got the early editions, I mean, some board games they do it where you get a version that you'll get something exclusive because you backed it. You might get some variant cards. Well, that's quite a big thing. I mean, another game that Gareth had shown me was a game called Sentinels of the Multiverse, which was basically Legendary, but it was all like royalty-free heroes. So it's like the Dark Vigilante who dresses as a marsupial. Yeah, but we won't call him Batman. That kind of thing. But that was a Kickstarter, so we got the Kickstarter exclusive, and it had bigger cards and also. But we were talking about which ones we would quite like to buy or to back. And what it occurred to us, and quite rightly so, is if one of us backs, say, the Ghostbusters board game, well, the rest of us won't, because he's going to want to play it with people. Yeah. If we've all got a copy of the game, it's a complete waste of time. We've all spent 70 quid on something we don't need to. And that's the advantage of having a little community of people, because you don't need to all spend 150 quid on Legendary, as long as one of you has. So what I should have done is realised that maybe I should have said to Gareth, can I borrow your copy of Legendary? Yeah. Although with all these cards, I'd probably want my own, so if anything happened to it, I wouldn't feel bad if somebody else
That's part of the thing that sort of strikes me. Some of them, I agree, it's pointless. If you've got the same group of friends you always do game nights with, you don't need more than one copy. No. Because you can't play them on your own. So your copy just gathers dust while we use mine, for example, or Gareth's or whoever's. Whereas Legendary, because you can play it alone, or if you can play it with your kids, and you've got the expansion packs, it almost feels like a different approach. Because it feels like that's the sort of game you could all buy, price aside. You could all buy quite happily, but equally still play if just one person had it. So it's kind of like that.
And that's the thing. Like, but then it comes down to, if you've played it around something, you might want it yourself. And like I said, I mean, if you just go for the base edition of Legendary, and I will give a bit of advice to you, if you're looking at buying board games, go to boardgameprices.com, and it's basically a price comparison site for board games.
Top tip.
And most people would assume that Amazon will be the cheapest.
Not always the case.
But really not the case with board games.
It's the most convenient for a lot of stuff. But it's
Amazon tends to be cheapest if a board game suddenly becomes rare. Amazon will sell off their stock at retail price. They won't increase. Whereas an independent retailer would probably go, well, actually, now that copy's
they'll stay on the ball and go,
that's now 120 quid. Shop 4 World is, as far as I've found, one of the cheapest places to get games from. They sometimes work out 25-30% cheaper than Amazon, which, you know, it can make a big difference if you're paying 70 quid. Oh, yeah. Legendary was available on there 52 quid at the shop. So straight away it was a massive. If I'd have bought all of this via that site, I probably would have got it for less than 100 quid, which I would absolutely... I mean, I've got no problem with the price I paid, but knowing I could have probably put in another expansion pack or something like that, that would have been quite nice, because that's all I really cared about, is just getting as much of it as possible, because it's kind of... It's an indulgence, but it's an indulgence that I've got something to show for it. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about how much I'd spent on it. And he was like, "Oh, that's ridiculous," as he pulls out his iPhone 6. Yeah. He's like, "Well, you paid a lot more for your phone. Are you going to replace that when you bring it?" "Oh, yeah, I'll replace that." So,
it's a fair
for
point.
me, like, everybody has something that they would spend money on, gladly. Yeah. For me, I wouldn't spend money on a phone, necessarily. But it's that kind of thing that everybody has. It's the same benefit. I mean, you might... when you used to play hockey... you would put a certain price on equipment, whereas somebody else would go, "Well, I don't see why you would want to spend so much on a helmet." Well, it can make the hell of a difference to you.
It can when people are shooting vulcanised rubber at your head.
Yeah, so, it is what it is.
You mentioned Sentinels of the Multiverse there. I noticed you put a little subheading, Board Games in a Digital Age.
Well, that is what we're going to put into Section 3. So why don't we just go on straight on to Section 3 now? Board Games in the Digital Age. Now, before we started showing you today, I showed you an app which then my description of it confused you because I did a bad job of describing what it is.
But then you demonstrated it and it started to make more sense.
Adventure Time is a thing. Yep. Very good TV show. Then in Adventure Time there's a card game called Card Wars, which then became an actual card game. Yep. In the real world.
Physical card game.
Yeah, called Card Wars that you can buy different sets of. And then there's an app of Adventure Time Card Wars, which takes in both the elements of the TV show and the actual card game, but then makes it more playable as an app. And you've had a look at it, and it's very functional. Yep. It is a proper with an opponent that plays against you. Now, this is the other part of what this is. Now, Dalek touched on it a bit earlier in his section about games that you can find other players. So I can play real people. Now, they're not live, but I'm playing against their deck. So I can change my deck, edit my deck. So if I get a rare card, put it in, that will increase my odds of winning. And then my avatar, for want of a better word, will play that game on my behalf and hopefully win, which is fair enough. It's the same as how the Forza Drive Tile system or whatever plays. So that's very good and not very expensive. Then you've got Sentinels of the Multiverse. Now that was a board game that I played. Yeah. And I wanted to buy it. It was about 30 quid. I could also buy the app of it, which was an iPad app. I don't think it works on iPhone, so I couldn't find it on the store, so I was going to put it on and show you. But the iPad app basically is the game. You play it as normal. There are also companion apps for a lot of games where you actually have, like with the XCOM board game, if you've got an iPad, all the events transpire through the iPad, which is quite a nice feature. And there's like companion ones where it will randomly generate your deck. So you'll just hit a button on here. Dominion, which I've got the board game of, that's got a brilliant kind of deck generation thing. So it means you're not consciously putting favourable things in. You just set it, you play it. And with Sentinels, it gave me an opportunity to buy that game and play it and really settle into the idea, do I want to buy it? Because with Legendary, I'm buying a Marvel card game. Yeah. If you're buying a non-IP game, you've got to really like that game element. Because, frankly, even if Legendary was a shit game to play, it's not.
You like Marvel.
Yeah, it's just cool to have these characters and play with these characters. So even if it's just average at best, it's still Marvel, which would elevate it up. Sentinels is a very good game. I do really like it. But it is that point where I have to justify the purchase. Yeah. So I bought the app, really liked it. And so I will buy the board game as an available moment where I have the funds, hopefully when I get a new job. But what the app does is, in the meantime, it gives me an opportunity to play it. Now, you've got Star Realms, which is a deck-building space combat game. Darren, who came to the game night, really loved it, recommends it highly. It's about a tenner for the card deck. Okay. You can get the app version for a couple of quid. You can actually play in real time against other people.
You can get Cards Against Humanity on digital platforms now as well.
I mean, there are lots of different ways. Now, the other thing that people do, and this is what I was going to say about, say, Legendary, some people they set up a webcam above what they've got, and it's almost like that. You know, when you see the kind of people there will like message somebody with their chess move.
Yeah, I was going to say that. When I saw the note on there talking about using webcams, that was one of the first thoughts was it's not that dissimilar to what people did for years, where they'd write each other letters. Hi, yes, we've survived the winter. By the way, king to night 12 or something.
And that's exactly what they do. You have the thing, you've got your deck laid out, so you can't cheat. You play a card, the other person could see it, you can see theirs on your screen. And so suddenly, what could be kind of quite an exclusive group, you can then connect using the internet to anywhere in the world. Somebody who is at your play level. So you can kind of use forums to find somebody who's perhaps new to the game, just like you are, or doesn't have that expansion, so just wants to play a standard game, and off you go.
Yeah.
And there are dozens of people that play these things. There's a request that next time we do a game night that we stream it live, and so we're going to have, hopefully, if it all works out, a webcam actually streaming the table, and another camera streaming the room, so that people flick between the two. And whether we put it over Twitch or whatever, I don't know yet. It's got to be... We'll probably actually do it for the Marvel night, which is our big one in April. But, it's just that whole idea that you can play a game... I mean, you can talk on Skype to anyone. You can play on Xbox Live, so why should a board game be any different? And,
as we've said, several of these games, some of the ones we've mentioned are Ticket to Ride. There's an app. Monopoly.
Yeah.
So, a lot of these... it's probably the game makers... They're kind of pulling into that digital world and clocking onto the fact that you can play with other people in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
And even that you still have your game night. You still have your physical 4 people around a table.
Yeah.
But you start to use mobile devices as part of the game.
Oh, exactly.
So you might not physically need to have... you kind of see it with Monopoly with the credit card one?
Yeah.
So they're kind of moving away from paper money,
also,
just to give you a plastic card, just go and stick it in this...
Have I ever showed you my Monopoly that uses the iPad?
No, you said you got it, but...
So basically you just put the iPad in the middle, and you put a card on it, and it reads like a magnetic thing, so it knows whether it's touching with a finger or whatever, and it knows who's put the money, so that's all interactive. And then to get out of jail free, instead of trying to roll a double, you just play a little mini Angry Birds game, which we talked about, fling you out, and all that sort of stuff. Again, it's a way of getting kids who have been brought up with tablets to say, well, here's a traditional board game, but it's not the traditional board game you remember, but it's still the traditional board game. It's still the constraints of the game are the same. And this is the same with Ticket to Ride and Carcassonne and Settlers of Catan and all these games that have got apps. It's a two-way street. So you've got people who want the physical game but want to give it a try. But then you've also got teenagers, mate. I wouldn't say kids necessarily with some of these games, but you've got teenagers upwards who might try the app and then think, I'd quite like to buy that game. Because a 30 quid board game, to some people, would think, well, that's quite a lot of money for a board game. I would only really pay a tenner for a board game because they're looking at Hungry Hippos prices instead of something that's been carefully made with die-cut pieces of cardboard and stuff. They don't understand it. I mean, what I'll do is before you go is I'll show you my Bioshock Infinite game, which I got for my birthday. I don't know if you saw it at my birthday, but I didn't open it, did I?
Not fully, no.
No, I'll show you through some of the contents of that because it's bloody overwhelming.
Yeah.
But again, the price that was a 70 quid game. Yeah. I can see where that money went.
Yeah.
It's not like cheaply put together. It's not just a box of plastic hippos. And so you find the apps will say, well, actually, I quite like that game, so I'll play it. Cards Against Humanity, people will play that and then go out and buy a deck.
Yeah.
Because it is one of those games that does lend itself well to just having a copy kicking around.
Yeah.
And that's something I can employ anybody who's listening. If you go on to Dominion, you can play that for free online. The first set, I think you pay for the expansions, but you can give it a go. It's a very, very good game. Carcassonne on the Xbox 360 is a 400-point arcade game. So it's what, £2.50 for a very good board game. It's like a staple of the German resource-based games. Rio Grande, I think, made that one. Ticket Ride, I think, is on 360. Pretty sure it must be. It's on pretty much everything.
I'd have to check. But this is something that I was thinking about the other day, and I've kind of had this week a little bit. I've not played a lot of games this week with one thing and another. A little bit of Destiny at the weekend. Tapped Out is tapped out. It is what it is for anybody who plays it, or equivalents like the Family Guy one. You just kind of do it as you go. But I was very much in sort of a mood where I just wanted something very relaxed to play, and I kind of missed those old interactive games like the 1 versus 100 that they did for a few years. It ended in 2010, and it's something I've started to pen on the blog that actually there's a place for those kind of games. Not just because
I nearly won that.
I think I did quite well on one of them.
I got to the last 1v1, and I was in the hundreds. Screwed up on a horse racing question. I lost.
Ironic, given what we started the show with.
42,000 Microsoft points. I was going to win for that.
But that was great. And that was very relaxed.
Well, it wasn't.
No,
but if you want to play that properly, when you've got to actually quickly answer those, because you had to get answers so quickly. But it was completely interactive.
Yeah.
On a massive scale.
Yeah. And the point of it, alright, I'd take me pounds and go like, X. But the point was you could literally just flop on the sofa and get involved with that. And that was great. And was it Full House Poker with the avatars?
Yeah.
Just be able to play those kind of games like that is great. Because you don't have to get a whole board out.
No.
You play it digitally, you can still play with 4, 5, 6 people because you're obviously connected by Xbox Live.
Yeah.
That's great. And that's...
But even which is one of the first staples of Xbox 360 is Xbox Live. I mean, obviously, take out the webcam stuff where people just ended up having rooms wanking at each other. But again, that was a game of
Yeah.
that even now, I dare say, if I put that on and installed it, I'd find a game immediately.
Yeah.
Would you be able to find a game on FIFA 13 easily?
Probably not now because we're up to FIFA 15.
So, and there are a lot of games. I mean, I remember when Batman Arkham Origins came out, I played that the week it came out and there was nobody playing online.
Yeah.
At all. I made a Vine of it at the time, which was because I had my eldest over to stay, and it was me just deadpan staring.
I remember this.
Then the no players, and it was just a skeleton eventually left over. It's pretty much what it was. It was awful to try a game, and yet you're going to get one because it's one of those everybody can play a game of It's just
it was
a casual
like that
drop
with
in.
Halo 2 for a long time. We touched on this when we talked about NBA 2K14.
Yeah.
And EA turning the servers off.
Yeah.
Whereas Halo 2 just lasted for years and years and years. And Titanfall, look at Titanfall, look how quickly that dropped off for people. If I went to play that now as a late adopter, I'd probably be playing pretty much entirely against bots.
I think you might. Well, I'm making a prediction now. Next month is the big Games of Gold anniversary month. I think Titanfall's going to be free game on both consoles.
Well, that would be great if I could actually download the fucking Games of Gold.
Because
I've tried to download Sniper Elite and it failed at the last hurdle.
This month,
and Bioshock Infinite and it's failed at the last hurdle.
they're giving...
Bioshock's on at the moment on 360.
They're giving the Season Pass and DLC for Titanfall for free.
Oh, you did mention this actually in last week's episode. Yeah.
If you think about it,
maybe.
You've got a game that is the big exclusive console game.
But then they have to give that away for free. If that is what's going to happen, they have to give that away for free to reinvigorate that community.
Well, but that's the same with most shooting games. Also, this is an EA game, so it could just go into their vault.
Maybe.
Because they've got their big thing.
But where I was kind of veered off a little bit is that even with Destiny now, I know people are starting to notice that it seems to be less busy on nights where it used to be very busy.
Well, Halo 2 is the monopoly of the Xbox.
It was.
It's one that everybody had. I mean, if you bought an original Xbox, you had a Halo 2.
Yeah.
Because it was the first massive multiplayer. I don't think Halo 1 had much multiplayer, if any.
Halo 1 didn't have multiplayer. It came in with Halo 2.
Yeah. So,
and of course it sold so well.
Yeah.
And so people played
and they did it. I think if I remember right, they even did an expansion disc for the multiplayer on Halo 2 with extra maps on.
I think they did,
because obviously download speed's not so good, but upload speeds are okay to play the game. So yeah, I remember I think I've even got the disc, even though I've never played it, because I just collect Xbox original games, even though I never had the console.
Yeah, I've still got all the Halo games.
I've got quite a lot. I've got both Halo 2 and Halo 3 as limited edition tin versions as well.
I've got Halo 3 in the tin.
Yeah, which came with a keyring, a rubbish keyring. With Master Chief's head in, not Master's head, but a picture of the thing. I thought that was the weirdest thing to put. Like a
very basic plastic
tin.
keyring.
Yeah, it's just like what you would get.
Have I got it on my keyring now?
It's like what you would get if you. Oh, that's to say, it looks just like it. Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
It's a shit keyring, frankly. Considering some of the ones they've brought out over the years. Yeah. I mean, it could have just been like a metal version of the Spartan helmet. That would have been cool. Instead, it's just like one of those you get when you go out for a night clubbing and they take your picture and say, well, you go on a log flume at a theme park. Would you like this in a key ring? It's just loads of people with like pasty faces. But no, this is it. You've got these games now that are available digitally. So, like I said, go back, listen to Dalek's bit again, take some notes, get some of the games. Try something out. Go look at well, Board Game Geek's always a pretty safe bet to go to. But go there and look for sort of the app-related stuff, and you'll find there's a whole wealth of these games that are expensive to buy as a board game, but you can pick up as an app and play it as normal. And it might, if you like it, and you like the gameplay style, then the board game's the way to go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was quite a good show. That's our first proper themed episode.
Yeah.
And just going to show what happens when we, A, have a good plan a week in advance, but actually most of the running order was written well over a week ago.
It was.
And B, when we don't muck about, we can put out a good show.
Yeah.
So we're leading on to my final thought, which is setting up a holocaust, which is what I was
Yeah.
go through. What it is there is it's supposed to be building up the holocaust. I don't know why I've written setting up a holocaust. But as you may have noticed, listeners at home, we have really kind of been working on the format of the show. And we've been kind of building up the blog. I know that's gone a little bit to the side because we've been very busy at the moment. We are working on it. The show is very important to us. We're really enjoying it. We're now at episode, 12 now?
This is episode 12.
Yeah. So, that's 3 months now. We've been putting out a podcast and quite enjoying it.
Yep.
And we're going to keep doing it. But this format is just going to get tighter and tighter. It's going to get better and better, and we're going forward. Now, I can quite excitedly reveal that we've partnered up with QWERTY, my favourite T-shirt company. They're going to provide us competition prizes for the next couple of months.
Yep.
So we'll basically have T-shirts to give away, and you will basically be able to, as far as I know, don't shoot the messenger, but I think we're getting codes so that you can actually go on the site, and when there's a T-shirt you really like, you
order
can choose it in your size and order that, and that's the prize you'll get, which I think is better than
awesome.
Just getting a load of 3XLs just to make sure we cater for everyone. Because normally whenever we've done, whenever I've been on any other show, they always send you a large T-shirt as a competition prize, which is not much of a prize for a lot of people because they end up just going to their people's kids. I remember there was one bloke, I think it was Wool Smiler up in Scotland. I think he had to give it to his girlfriend. And I said, make sure you take a picture and send it to us, which sounded a bit pervy. But luckily he did it, and it was fine. I think I told her to act like a monkey or something as well, but I can't remember the
Getting pervy by the minute.
It was the heady days of MGP's height, where I was getting a bit drunk with power. I could just say, "Dance for me, monkey!" And here, we gave you a T-shirt, so that's what you'll do. But no, so we've got those coming, so that's really good. We're also, I'm in talks at the moment with a publisher to hopefully get some items to give away. I don't know what they're going to send us, but they're very excited as well. Obviously, you're looking at something very secret at the moment.
Yes.
Code name projects and stuff, which is all quite good. We should be able to talk about that next week, maybe.
Yep.
Because, we will be able to talk about it because the show won't go out till after the embargo.
True.
So hopefully you'll know how to go on it by then. And it's all starting to come together. So again, as always, your feedback is very much required and appreciated. So drop us an email. People have been emailing us. We've got an email from a University of Berkeley in America where some students have made a platform for promoting music and podcasts and asked if we'd be interested. I looked at it with some scepticism, but I have contacted them back just saying, well, we might be interested. They're basically pitching it as a rival to SoundCloud. Called Clamour.
Well, we broke SoundCloud, so...
Well, this is what they've said. What they do is they allow you to upload 10 seconds of audio or 30 seconds of audio, and then you can link it to a large audio file. So if you've got a podcast, you can put the link could be to the podcast on, say, Spreaker or iTunes. You can get it both there. And so they can listen to, say, we do a little jokey routine, and somebody might listen to that and think, I want to listen to the rest of that, and then go to the podcast. Sounds very good. I just want to speak to them to see whether it's actually so it's going to keep going, because if it is, then we'll get behind it. So that's Clamour. I think it's got 3 M's in it, something like that. You can email us, or you can tweet us, or you can leave us a review and give us some feedback. That would be good. Also, if you're interested in coming along to any of the board game nights at the shop or beyond, because we might not host them at the shop for much longer. We might be hosting them either here or a local cafe where they've offered us tables. Get in touch. I know a lot of you are quite a long way away, but if you're down this way on business and you fancy going on, we'll sort some out. It doesn't have to be a specific date. If you know you're coming this way, we'll just do it anyway. So that would be good. Follow us on Twitter at We Are The Lollicles with a letter R in a place of the word R. You follow me at Bouncy and Rob 2nd B.
Follow me at Rob McGregor35.
You can follow Mark, who will be with us again soon. He's massively busy at the moment at XBLA Silicam. And Dalek you can find at The Voice of Sex.
And you can just email us at wearetheholocaust@gmail.com.
That's right, yeah.
It's not very well telling people to email us, but they actually need to know the email us.
The problem is
So
they still think that that's post in Yorkshire because of what you said at the beginning. But we will be back next week for episode 13 of Very Dirty Baker's Dozen. Because I thought next week was episode 12, so it was just called A Very Dirty Dozen, but instead it's going to be Very Dirty Baker's Dozen, that's 13. Next week we'll be talking about the grim side of gaming, the nasty stuff, the very violent bits and the bad bits, and just sort of looking at it hopefully with a balanced point of view. You may have already seen, I know I spoke to Rob about it, about the kind of the rape porn Lara Croft thing. So we're going to be looking at that, not in too much detail that you won't want to listen, but just sort of approaching that from some different ways. And hopefully it'll make for another chunk of themed content. And we hopefully will play some games as well next week. So we'll be able to talk about that as well. Well, that's all we've got time for this week. I think I should go and get that Bioshock game and worry you with the amount of components.
Yep.
And we'll join these like next week.
We will.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.